Live at the Legislature. I'm Carolyn Tanaka, and every Tuesday morning you can find me here with a variety of representatives talking about issues, legislation, and priorities moving through the halls of the state capitol. With me this morning is Representative Ryan Yamane. He represents Mililani, YPO Gentry, and Waikele. Good morning, Rep. Thank you for driving in so early to be with us.
Glad to be here.
You know, before we start talking about some of the legislation that you've introduced and some of your priorities as Chair of Water and Land and Hawaiian Affairs, I wanted to let the people know something very interesting about you. You are a social worker by trade, and you volunteer with the American Red Cross, and you have been deployed several times to several major disasters on the mainland. Can you talk a little bit about your experience?
Sure. I've been with the American Red Cross as a volunteer for mental health for over 14 years. And I have been to several deployments, including the Parkland shootings, the shootings at Las Vegas, and the fires at Paradise.
Have those experiences influenced the way you legislate or the things that you look at? Because I do notice, and we are going to talk about it, some of your bills that you introduced this year deals with bullying and school violence. So if you can talk a little bit about the correlation.
Yeah, sure. So as a volunteer disaster responder, I meet with the disaster volunteers and the first responders. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the issue of violence in schools and on academic campuses. And so this year in the off session, I met with those from the community. I met at the Fusion Center to get information. And so this year came up with several bills to try to address that, to prevent that from happening in Hawaii. So one of them, the bills is to have the proper education, not only for students, but also for staffs of educational sites. We did several bills on to try to address the victims of bullying so that they have resources. One of the issues we noticed was that certain areas were not getting the resources and the attention that they deserve. So we actually have a bill in this year to provide a resource for the LGBTQ community so that they can come together, talk about some of their experiences, and help educate and provide policy improvements throughout the state of Hawaii.
And are those some of the things that you picked up while you were on deployment at the school shootings?
So when I went out there, I met with different communities in Florida, in Las Vegas, and in California. One of the things that came up was the issue of violence and how to do prevention. And so if you look at the research, prevention can happen daily within our school systems and within our community. And so using that, I met with different community stakeholders and came up with these ideas to try to help try to reduce some of that bullying, some of those negative experiences that might lead somebody to do violence.
Do you think that we are doing enough in our schools to address the issue of bullying?
I would like to see more, and so that's why some of these bills were inspired this year. So another bill we're trying to do is to give schools the resources to allow students who are homeless to be able to use the facilities to do showering, to wash their clothes, to help reduce the stigma of that, and help make their school experience more enjoyable.
And where those bills are moving?
Yes, they are. They're currently in our finance committee.
Okay. I also see that another bill that you introduced is designed to help our National Guard soldiers.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the bill is to ask for a study by our employee retirement system to look at providing benefits to those that were called up to the Guard or the reserves on behalf of the state of Hawaii to do deployments throughout the world. It's very important for us to show our veterans support, and this bill, if the study comes out the way we think it is that they will be increased in benefits.
And some other, I think another batch of bills that you've introduced this year address the ever trending problem of climate change and sustainability. Yes. So go through a couple of those bills first.
So this year, we wanted to be one of the leaders in the world regarding the issue of sustainability. So one of those things is making sure that we as a state integrate that into all that we do. So one of the things that we're doing is trying to develop a Department of Sustainability. First, we're going to do it internally as help our state sustainability coordinator. We're also trying to look at ways of providing resources to our coastal zone management individual, in which now they'll work integratedly with Department of Transportation and the other departments to come up with policies, procedures, and rules to address the issue of climate change and sea level rise.
Moving on to that kind of, you were also the chair of the Water, Land, and Hawaiian Affairs
Yes.
Committee. It's
Quite a mouthful.
yes, it's been a committee that deals with a lot of complex issues, but Water, Land, Hawaiian Affairs. Tell us, what does your committee deal with?
So my committee actually deals with the top of the mountain all the way into the ocean. We deal with state waters. I deal with issues relating to land use, to water access. We deal with protection, Native Hawaiian rights. Department of Hawaiian Homelands and Office of Hawaiian Affairs fall under my purview. So my committee is quite robust in regards to potential topics and policy issues.
And what are some of the things that you're taking a look at this year in your committee?
So, one of the things that I take it very seriously is to try to help the Native Hawaiians, Kanaka Maolis. And so one of the things that we heard was they have this deep connection with their past. So one of the things we're trying to do is put resources in Iolani Palace. We've worked with Iolani Palace to not only try to redo their roof, but also to address some of the failing infrastructure so that it can be the palace that people are proud of. We're also working on issues of getting actual affordable housing units within the urban core so that Native Hawaiian beneficiaries can actually get units quicker and faster. So we're doing that in East Honolulu, and we're also looking at trying to revitalize Mapunapuna area so that we can get desperately needed units out to Native Hawaiians.
Well, as I said, that it's a committee that deals with a lot of things, a lot of complex things. And very quickly, we've got 43 seconds left. I would be riffed if I didn't ask you about TMT.
Okay, what would you like to know? We did a reso on behalf of the speaker. We
Very
heard the reso
important one. Yes.
that talks about getting this commission together. It's very similar to a bill that I introduced, in which would make a cabinet member, one from Native Hawaiian ancestry, to help guide the state forward on dealing with these issues that from past hurts and wrongs to moving forward in a way that is pono for them.
Right.
Have it be self-determined on what issues they think is important and where they want to be.
Very important reconciliation attempt.
Yes.
Thank you, Representative, for joining us this morning. And thanks to all of you for joining us once again at Live at the Legislature. See you next week. Aloha.
Aloha.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record Live at the Legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
Every year, thousands of children go missing in Hawaii. Sometimes they're taken by a stranger or a family member. Sometimes they become lost, run away, or even forced out of their homes into danger on the streets. Aloha, I'm Amanda Leonard with the Missing Child Center Hawaii. We are a program within the Department of the Attorney General, and our mission is to protect missing and exploited children by using every possible resource to locate, recover, and reunite them with their families and caregivers. The consequences for missing children and their families are devastating. Educating yourself and your children about child safety, including what they share online, is their best protection against abduction and exploitation. If your child is missing or if you have information on a missing child, please contact us. Please also visit our webpage for more information on our services, our KKID program, and a list of Hawaii's missing children so that you can help us bring them home. Mahalo.
Aloha and welcome back to Live at the Legislature for our Senate Majority segment. I'm the Senate Communications Director, Jesse Broder Van Dyke, and this week, continuing our Mililani area theme of today's show, we have Senate Vice President Michelle Kidani. Thanks so much for fighting traffic to be here with us this morning.
Thank you. Aloha kakahiaka.
Aloha. As chair of the Education Committee, you're advancing a measure right now to increase teacher pay. How's that going to help our teachers, and why is that important right now?
Well, Senate Bill 2488 is extremely important to me and my colleagues because we all know that teachers do not get paid as much as they should be. We have already passed it out of our Senate Education Committee, and the gist of the bill is that we are appropriating $25 million in this next year's budget, and it can be used in three ways. The bill, the $25 million can be used to continue the appropriation that is happening now to raise the salaries of teachers that are in the special education field or Hawaiian immersion or the hard-to-fill geographic locations. Or it can be used to address the compression or the steps that our veteran teachers need to, increase the level of pay that they have not been able to get because the steps, they have met the highest steps already, or a combination of the two. And I'll say that however it's used, it has to be agreed upon with a memorandum of agreement between not only the DOE but the teachers union, HSTA.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of people will be following that measure as it moves forward. And also in your Education Committee this year, you've been working on part of the joint package that the Senate, House, and Governor introduced together this year. One of the components is to create a facilities agency to help with school construction. Where does that stand?
Correct. So we also passed this bill out of the Senate Education Committee. This is Senate Bill 3031, and what this bill does is to create a separate schools facility agency. So we are taking this agency out of the Department of Education, and it will be tasked to do all new school buildings, major renovations, and hopefully that we can address the needs that we have had for many years. The Senate and the House passed something called Act 155 about 7 years ago. And that bill was designed to make use of underutilized or vacant DOE school lands. And to date, we have not been able to accomplish any of that. I know last year, the DOE finally was able to name a few sites or schools that something like Act 155 could be used for. And Act 155 really is a game changer because you would redevelop the land and either include 21st century schools on the land with some kind of retail or housing or office space, whatever. And the gist is to use the lease that we get, that the DOE would receive from this, to generate revenues needed for all major renovations that would have and should be happening in our schools, our 271 public schools, which are mostly over 50, 60 years old. And such facilities need upgrading to make sure that we can give our students and our teachers the very best that we have to offer to continue better education of our students in the state of Hawaii.
And why has it been so difficult for DOE to implement this act, and how would creating a separate facilities agency help move the process forward?
I think by the DOE's own words and presentations that they've made to groups like HIPAA or Hawaii Ecumenical Council, etc., that they are educators and not builders. And I see the struggle that they have because with 271 schools, we are a very, very large state school system, and actually the only system in the whole United States where the state runs all the school systems, and we don't get financial support from the city or any of those. We have also looked at other ways to help, like we passed a bill a couple years ago that would give the DOE title to all of the property under school lands that was owned by the city and county of Honolulu. we also propose bills and pass bills that would extend the amount of years that we could do leasing for up to 99 years now. It would make it easier to for developers and financiers to want to lease our school properties and have the lease go back, the lease rents and retail funds go back into the DOE.
Okay. And part of the goal in doing this is to create 21st century schools. What exactly is that?
21st century schools basically is enable teachers and the students to take advantage of all the technology we have, whether we have computers, labs, etc. in our schools. One of the things that you'll hear teachers and administrators say is that the schools can't even support the air conditioning window units because the lack of upgraded energy. So some of those things have to be done before we can continue to add computers and other things that we need, the technology of today, to give the students the best possible technology and curriculum that has been developed, but we're not able to take advantage of because we don't have the space, nor do we have the facilities and the upgraded electrical conduits that we need.
And in your district, or near your district, a number of your constituents' children go to Mililani Middle School, which was on a 2-track system, but you're building an expansion right now with a grant that the legislature provided?
Actually, it's a 4-track system, okay. So it's like 4 different middle schools on one campus. Okay. And yes, so we finally were able to get the shovels in the ground last month, and by school year 21-22, we will be a single-track middle school. And I think parents and students have been looking towards this for a long time. Senator De La Cruz, who also represents the Mililani area, and I have been working with the city. Part of it was to get part of the city parkland to expand the new building, the 2-story building that we needed to make this happen. And Principal Chung has been very patient with all of us, and we look forward to that opening.
Great. Well, sounds like a big improvement for all the students out there. We only have about 30 seconds left, but Education Week is coming up at the legislature. Can you tell us quickly what's coming up? Yes.
So in March, we have Education Week, which we have done for years with the House and Senate. And basically, it's to honor and the high school principals, et cetera, our students who have excelled in different things, whether it's sports or curriculum. And we just look forward to that because this is a way to showcase what Hawaii's students and principals and other administrators have done for us.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you so much for being here with us this week. Vice President Michelle Kidani, thanks, and we'll see you again next week on Live at the Legislature.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Your government needs you. The Hawaii State Legislature is encouraging citizens to get informed and involved. With thousands of bills introduced every year, it can be hard to keep up on the issues that matter most to you. Located on the 4th floor of the state capitol, the public access room is filled with knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you. This is your Hawaii, your state capitol. Get informed, get involved, and get the government you want.
Aloha.
Legislators, are you looking for an efficient way to get a timely message across to your constituents? Look no further than Olelo's suite of easy access services. We offer a mini studio designed to help you create a short message or a 30-minute program. We also offer basic production training where you can learn how to produce, shoot, and edit your own videos. Access to broadcast media has never been easier. Reach out to your constituents. Visit olelo.org for more information.
Good morning and welcome to the Legislative Minority segment of Live at the Legislature. I'm Aloha Lindsay, your host for the Legislative Minority. Joining us today and breaking from the Mililani area legislator tradition or theme is Representative Bob McDermott from Eva Beach. He's a former Marine captain and sits on the Committee on Public Safety, Veterans, and Military Affairs. Representative McDermott, good morning.
Good morning, Kyle. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I hope the folks are still with us after sitting through the Night of the Living Dead with those previous two segments, but we're going to get a little energy here. So fire away at your questions.
Speaking of firing, we will be talking about guns today. And you had introduced a bill as HB 2232, which it's a red flag law.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, great. So my rating by the NRA is as good as you can get, A+, right? But we have a challenge with crazies getting guns, right? So one of the areas that I thought was pretty easy to go after was these juveniles. Troubled juveniles who are in trouble with the law constantly, have a documented history in juvenile court, of being mentally unstable. These are the kids who put cats in microwaves, right? So just because they turn 19, we don't want them to go buy a shotgun or a long rifle. They can't buy a pistol until they're 21 here. So that was the intent. So the law enforcement could access those juvenile records. Now, as you can imagine, there was some brouhaha from the public defender and the NRA guy, which that's his job, I understand. But you know what? All the NRA folks, all the gun owners who were there, and I was in the hearings testifying, it's my bill, not one of them said this is a bad law. Not one of the regular rank and file gun owners thought it was a bad idea. Because you see, they don't want the crazies to have guns either. So this is one way we can capture that. You know, we have 300 million people in America, and the chances of a crazy getting a gun are pretty high unless you ban them all, which is what the left wants to do. So we have to take these common sense solutions and try and look at capturing the behavior. Now they took that behavior issue, they thought it was a good idea, it was my bill, took my name off it and put it in another bill which had to do with reducing the size of the magazine from 20 rounds to 10 rounds. Why? I don't know, and just felt good to do it and nibble around the edges and say we're for responsible gun ownership, so we're reducing the size of the magazine. I don't know of any mass killer in United States history who said, wait a minute, if I take this 20-round magazine, I might have a longer prison sentence after killing 50 people, so I better only take the 10-round magazine. It's ridiculous. Bad guys don't follow the law. So if they want a 30-round magazine, they're going to get one. If they want a 20-round magazine, they're going to get one. And the 10 rounds, you can just do a Jonathan Wick thing where you tape the ends together, right? You put it in, pop it out, flip it around, so you got 20 rounds. The legislators don't understand that. I dare say most of the people in this building don't know which end of the rifle the round comes out of. Excuse me, my phone's ringing. Live TV. There's a bill collector. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. So most of them don't know which end of the rifle the round comes out of. So that's what you're dealing with. And then Oahu's very urban. The neighbor island folks have much more of an affinity for the willingness to carry a shotgun or a rifle or something like that.
And so I think that's always, especially since the tragedy at Diamond Head earlier this year, the legislature's kind of taken, there's been a lot of gun bills that we've seen very recently. And how do we address, I guess, the broader problem of public safety, but also protecting the constitutional rights of folks?
Well, you bring that up as an example. Here's a guy who was crazy. I mean, many folks said the guy's unstable. He'd been basically a squatter for 20 years there. He grabbed weapons that weren't his. They were the old ladies that he was staying with her. He got his hands on those. So we should, I think the old lady's dead, right? She was one of the casualties. So it was her fault for making them available to this guy or leaving them in a situation where he could get a hold on them. So it wasn't the weapon's fault. It was this behavior of the crazy. So we're going to have to get to a point where we say, do we focus on the crazies or we focus on the tool? The tool were long rifles that he used, and sadly, the two officers lost their lives, and just a horrible, horrible tragedy. But it wasn't the gun's fault. It was this lunatic guy running around over there in Diamond Head. And he's the guy, if we could have spotted him sooner, get him out of there. Well, they were trying to get rid of him, right? They were serving eviction papers on him. And mentally unstable, a crazy. And this is this can happen. Or, you know, he could have got a gasoline can and put a rag in it and firebombed the home and firebombed people. So.
And back to the bill that you introduced, what was the process that you went through before drafting it? Were there other states that had introduced similar legislation? You had a meeting with, you know, key community members or stakeholders?
Well, yeah, there were some other states, I think, and what brought it up was that kid down south who did the mass shooting had developed a kill list, and the high school authorities had gotten it. And we missed so many red flags with that person. And then he ended up eventually, I guess, taking his mother's weapons or somebody's and went to school and did a school shooting. There were warning flags, and we didn't execute on them. Here, kill list, okay, automatically, until you're 26, you can't get a weapon. If you want to get a weapon at 23, you have to go to a psychiatrist and have him verify that you're not a threat anymore.
And what's some of the indicators? I think in the bill, it's a diagnosis from the American Psychiatric Association. So
Right.
are there examples of, you know,
Well,
what those red flags might be?
Well, as you know, the legislation, it's a process, right? So you go in with some benchmarks. I think we had three. The benchmark was 3 instances that are adjudicated by a family court judge or a judge that would deal with, which is family court, minors. They say, hey, this guy's got a problem. And short of sending him to the juvenile home, we're doing X, Y, and Z. Probably shouldn't have a weapon at 19, right? Probably shouldn't. There's a lot of kids who are 19 that aren't mature enough to do that. Lucky if we get most kids to clean their room at 19, right, or 18. So having a gun is serious business. And if the juvenile, this was a way to identify crazy juveniles, right? That's all it was. Adults, it's a little more difficult.
I see. And so for the record, the language is still in a different bill?
Language is still there in a different bill, which reduces the magazine capacity. So I had to vote no. Because here are the 2 arguments. Behavior or tool. What is the issue? What do the crazies all have in common? Well, they're all crazy. They use different tools. So we're nibbling around the edges about tools just because they have a flash suppressor or a pistol grip that looks like it's a combat pistol grip. It has nothing to do with the behavior of the individual. Reckless people getting their hands on weapons is what we have to be careful about.
Brett McDermott, former Marine captain and legislator from Pebble Beach. Thank you for bringing the energy to us this morning.
Hey, we got some energy. Yeah. All right, Kyle.
Thanks for joining us. To the
right.
viewers again, for updates between now and next week, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at High House GOP.